You're here because you want to know the top 5 mistakes I see all the time when electricians install EV charge points. Even though installing EV charge points isn't that complicated, many installers make these same faux pas day in and day out. So in this video, I'm going to reveal all, so that hopefully electricians stop making these mistakes, and so that you as a customer know what to look out for if you're having an EV charge point installed yourself. And make sure you stay to the end, because I'm going to be revealing a bonus 6th mistake that's got the industry talking at the moment. So the first mistake is that 71% of you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, and I was shocked when I saw those statistics on YouTube Analytics. So the first thing you need to do is make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying our content. It really helps our channel to grow, and it means you won't miss out on future videos. So for the first mistake, we're going to need these. Because EV chargers are designed to be installed outdoors, they all have a rating which is called their IP rating. Some people say it's ingress protection. That's the one I'll vote for. Other people say it stands for international protection, or all sorts of crazy fake news stories out there about what the IP rating actually stands for. But what it means is how well sealed is the enclosure of this device. For most EV chargers, they should be IP65, which means that you can spray them with water jets and water's not going to get in them. And the enclosures are designed to be IP rated. However, if you don't install them properly, you can ruin that IP rating. Let me show you what I'm talking about. In the back of the EV charger here, you'll see a place for the cable entry. Now, some installers I've seen will literally just drill a hole in the back of this and thread the cable straight through without any kind of sealing, without any kind of grommet or compression gland. And what that means is that even though the enclosure is IP rated, you've completely compromised the IP rating of the device, and water can come into the back through the hole, dust can come in, insects can come in, and I've seen some terrible examples of this over the years. So this rubber seal is what I'm talking about. This is the seal that the manufacturers provide to make sure the enclosure is IP rated. And actually you should be able to see on the side of the device, this particular one is a 𝐒𝐻𝐺, it's IP65 rated. I'll leave a picture up on the screen here of what the different IP ratings mean. Now, it isn't just the cable entry holes that need to be sealed properly, but the screw holes as well. In the back of this unit, for example, you've got pre-made screw holes and they come with rubber bungs. If you drop a rubber bung out of a screw hole and you don't actually put a screw in there, then that can invite water ingress. But the other thing is, when you do fit a screw, you need to fit a special washer with a rubber seal on the back of it to maintain the IP rating of the casing, and that's all detailed in the manufacturer's instructions. But if you haven't read the instructions or you haven't been trained properly, it could be easy to miss and just ruin the IP rating of this enclosure. The other thing is just to make sure that you actually close the enclosure properly when you're putting the lid on. Make sure it's all sealed properly on the outside, that the rubber seal is sitting in place properly, and that everything is fitting nice and flush. Now you might say, yeah, Jordan, you're just exaggerating because you get loads of customers sending you pictures of dodgy installs, or other electricians sending you pictures of dodgy installs because of your presence on social media. But that's not correct, because an audit report was done by the government a few years ago on a random selection of EV charger installs that had been happening under the EV Home Charge grant scheme. That audit report was made available to all of the installers on the scheme, including ourselves, and the results were shocking. Some of the facts inside that report are what I'm using to make this video today. For example, out of 615 installs that were audited, only 21 were fully satisfactory. Can you believe it? That means that nearly 4 in 5 installs had problems. And with this first issue that we've mentioned, 33% of the installs that were audited had problems with their IP rating and weren't sealed correctly. The second really bad mistake that I see a lot of electricians making when installing EV chargers is not fitting the right RCD protection. Let me show you an example. This has been wired on a main switch. Why? Well, this whole install is a bit of a can of worms, which we're here after a bodge trying to tidy up, because the electrician who came in didn't really know what they were doing when it comes to installing EV chargers. This is gonna have to be fixed, but the main consumer unit that this is fed off doesn't have the right RCD protection either. Let me show you. So in this property we have 2 consumer units. In here you've got a type AC RCD, and and that's marked by just like one squiggle on the RCD with no dotted line. It should be on a type A RCD. That's the regulations requirements for EV chargers. They should be protected by their own individual double pole type A RCD. This case, it's an type AC RCD, so it doesn't protect against DC leakage, which is important for EV chargers. And also we've got multiple circuits on this one RCD. An EV charger should have its own dedicated RCD or RCBO, and if it is on an RCBO, it needs to be a double pole RCBO so that it isolates both the line and neutral conductors in the event of a fault. So this install doesn't comply on multiple levels, but the main point is you should have a double pole type A RCD or RCBO protecting an EV charger. That is standard. The third mistake that I see a lot of installers making is not installing the EV charge point at the right height, either installing it too high or too low. And for that, we're going to need these. The IET Code of Practice for electric vehicle charging point installations gives us a minimum height of 0.5 metre or 50 centimetres and a maximum height of 1.5 metres for an EV charge point. Now that's generally the height of the socket or the height of the screen if it's a tethered unit. But there's very good reasoning behind these height restrictions, and there's also a bit of a refinement. The Equalities Act actually narrows that down. Now the Equalities Act is to do with making sure that things are accessible for people with disabilities, for example, somebody in a wheelchair. According to the Equalities Act, the recommended height is between 0.75 and 1.2 metres, or 75 centimetres and 120 centimetres. That's so that somebody with a wheelchair can easily access and use the charging point. But why would there be requirements around the height that these chargers should be mounted at? Well, one is obviously for usability, like we've mentioned, particularly for people with disabilities, etc. That totally makes sense. But another is with regards to safety. If you mount an EV charger like this too low, it could easily be driven into by a car bumper if it's on the driveway and cause damage and potentially danger to people in the surrounding area. Whereas if you mount it above bumper height, then you avoid any possibility of crashing into the charging point. Another reason it shouldn't be too low is because of flood risk. Imagine if it was so low that a flood came and filled the charger with water. That wouldn't be great. Now, in the audit report that the government made, a whopping 30% of installs were found to either be too high or too low. I'll leave a diagram up on the screen now with more information. Just before I move on to the fourth mistake, these Unilite work lights are amazing. They get us out of trouble so often when working in dark spaces, especially like the head torch. It's just so useful for electricians. But this light as well is super powerful, really nice and compact, good quality, and it can just like magnetize onto things. It's amazing. Anyway, if you want a cheeky discount on Unilite gear, there's a link below where you can use our special discount code. So mistake number 4 is not fitting a surge protection device. I see this so often where electricians will fit an EV charger, but there's no surge protection device for the property and they don't fit one with the EV charger. That is the case here. They have actually fitted a surge protection device, which I'll show you at the other end, but it's in the wrong place. It should always be at the main incomer, and it should ideally be within about 30 centimetres of the main tails. What we tend to do is fit a main isolator switch that's got a surge protection device in it, or if you've only got one main consumer unit, the surge protection device can go in that main consumer unit, but it needs to be located somewhere close to the main incomer, and if it's a TT system, it needs to be a type 1 and type 2 SPD. If you're not on a TT earthing system, then a type 2 is sufficient. The idea is that surge protection device absorbs any surges that happen on the overhead lines or from stuff going on in the local area, and it will stop the sensitive electronics in the EV charger from being damaged or fried in the event of a surge. And let's face it, an EV charger is not cheap, so you're protecting your investment by installing a surge protection device, and it is a requirement now according to regulations. Now, the fifth mistake that we see a lot of people making is not checking the main fuse size before they do an install. This property has a 100 amp main fuse, so we're fine. But some properties in the UK have only a 60 amp main fuse, or they maybe have a looped supply and all of the power for their property is shared across a cable for a neighbouring property too. And in those cases, a DNO application is necessary to apply for permission in advance to connect an EV charger to the grid. That's because EV chargers pull a lot of power for a long time, with a 7 kilowatt charger pulling 32 amps constantly for 8 hours if you're charging from 0 to 100%. And this can significantly affect the main service head, could overheat, you could blow the main fuse or overload the main power cable to the property. So checking the main fuse size is absolutely essential before any EV charger installation. And we've created a special virtual site survey tool called OpenQuote that allows people to give us that information in a quick and easy way. There's a link below if you want to find out more if you're an installer and benefit from that tool. So before I show you the sixth and final point in this video, I've got to show you these cables. They've just been kind of slung in and you know, clipped. I mean, they are clipped, but not very neatly, shall we say, not to the Artisan standard. And look at this earth rod here that's just been put into the ground. It's just spiked into like a lump of cement. So I have no idea whether the earth reading is going to be low enough or not. We'll certainly check that out for the customer, but it all looks like a little bit Heath Robinson. Now my sixth and bonus point is about outdoor consumer units. There's been a hot debate in the industry lately because some cheap EV charger installers will just throw an outside consumer unit in, and there's a lot of people saying that they're not compliant, the RCDs are not designed to work in such cold temperatures, you've got issues with condensation, pollution ratings of the consumer units, there's loads of things to do with that. Now this is just to illustrate, this is the type of consumer unit that people are putting outside. Now this is a plastic one, sometimes they're metal. This one's just got a main switch, a surge protection device and an MCB. Now that would never be compliant because it needs RCD protection for an EV charger, but this is kind of what they look like, and people just stick them next to the meter box in order to avoid having to come off the main house consumer unit if it's not compliant, or in order to not put a consumer unit in the meter box, which is not really allowed. I hate that, and we would never do it that way, but there's a lot of people out there doing it, and I just warn you because I've seen these installs happening and I've seen customers getting upset afterwards because they didn't expect that to happen. Ask your installer in advance, are you going to be putting an outside consumer unit in for this, or what, you know, how are you going to be connecting the EV charger? If they're offering to put an outside consumer unit, that would ring alarm bells for me. But yeah, this is what they look like, and in this case, as I said, this is a whole can of worms. This place, there's a lot of upgrades to do. This is the old garage consumer unit. There's another dodgy kind of old consumer unit up here, cables just lashed in, but you know, all of this was done by an electrician apparently, so you can see the dangers of not getting somebody who really knows what they're doing. It's all been absolutely lashed in, and now it all needs tidying up by a proper electrician. So yeah, fun. Hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, there'll be 2 more videos popping up on screen now that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. And why not click the link below to join our school electricians community. There's a whole section about dodgy electrics there where we share all of our dodgy findings. Thanks for watching, and see you again soon.